Hey guys, welcome back to the Viking Initiative for Building Excellence. Today we'll be covering English as part of the ACT course, and this will be lesson two. Now, for English, I'll go over the structure and timing first. So basically, there are two types of ACTs. The first one is the paper ACT or the old ACT. And if you choose to take this, you'll have to answer 75 English questions in 45 minutes with five 15-question passages. And yeah, my recommendation for this is try to finish in 40 minutes, which is about 8 minutes per passage. And you give yourself 5 minutes to review all of those 75 questions. So yeah, I think this is a reasonable timing setup, and this is what I used when I was practicing for English. Now, for the new digital ACT, it's 50 questions in 35 minutes. The passages have gotten shorter. They're 10 questions. There's still five passages, but now you have like more time per question. So with this, try and finish in 32 and a half minutes, which gives you about 2.5 minutes to review. And 32 and a half minutes gives you 6.5 minutes per passage. And these are 10 question passages. And some of the questions are really easy. As soon as you see it, you can answer it. So this should give you plenty of time to succeed. Now, for the question types, there are three main question types that the ACT prescribes. The first one's production of writing. Um, 32% of the questions on your test would be about this sort of subtopic in English. Basically, relevance of information, transitions, and logical flow. Yeah, mainly in this, what I've come across is logical flow and transitions. These are the most prescribed questions. For transitions, you're looking at sort of sentence starters, and does it make sense with the topic? Like, for example, if it's continuing on, like you don't want it to be like opposing what it's saying. Like instead of using in addition, you use however, etc. Yeah, so logical flow sort of plays a part into that. And then knowledge of language is 16%, which is basically redundancy, word choice, clarity, and tone. This is sort of like spread all throughout the English section. So like even though it says 16%, like generally you'll need to like understand how the tone or style is going through the entire passage, especially for things like logical flow here. And then the last one is conventions of standard English, which is 52%. This is probably what you have to study the most. It includes grammar, punctuation, such as commas, colons, semicolons, and apostrophes. You need to know how to use all of those. And sentence structure. So breaking down complex sentences into, you know, reasonably spaced sentences. So how should you study for English? So this is what I did. So I find that doing a practice test first gives you like the best indication of where you are. This is because so what I did was I split like the practice test results um, into like four brackets. So that like the first bracket was like concepts that you can do intuitively, like basically like you're able to understand like the tone, or you're able to see grammar mistakes or structure or flow, whatever it is. You're able to see it right off the bat. Like you don't need to think about it. You can just see it and you know the right answer. Then the second bracket is you can do it consistently and you can get that concept right consistently, but you have to take some time to think about it. So this is where now you have to like improve your time, but your accuracy is already good. Then the third bracket is what you get wrong sometimes, and you have to think about it. So basically, if you're getting things wrong sometimes, you want to try and remedy that sometimes to make it a perfect area for you. And then lastly, of course, what you get wrong consistently. This is obviously the first thing you want to try and fix. So yeah, as I said before, DNC, my fault. DNC are top priorities. So you want to find review materials for the question types in these categories, whether it's from like the ACT question bank or the book, wherever you find it, you want to find like specific to that concept. So whether it be tone, style, structure, grammar, like punctuation, whatever it is. Don't waste time by practicing A, of course. If you're able to do it intuitively, you don't need any practice. And then, yeah, I think this is the most important part. When you see yourself improving topics considered in the DNC bracket, that you've practiced it without time pressure, and you've understood the material, start practicing under time conditions. And when you start practicing under time conditions, also add like concepts that are in bracket B also into this practice. So then you can be accurate and you can also have good time management. Okay, so the timing method I use, this is exactly what I use. So for paper, I recommend, so it's 15 minutes per passage. So you want to expect to be done with a passage every 8 minutes, which is about 40 minutes total, and w- giving you about 5 minutes to spare, which is, um, you know, I feel like it's ample time for you to check any questions you weren't sure of in that 75 questions. Only skip questions that are unrelated to the progression of the text, meaning like conventions like grammar or punctuation, because like the rest of the questions, you kind of need to know like the flow or the structure of like the entire passage. So if you skip those, then you'll take more time to like understand the flow by having to read like the context previously. So yeah, for the digital ACT, points B and C still apply, but like the timings changed obviously. So try and finish in 32 and a half minutes, 6.5 minutes per passage, giving you 2.5 minutes to review. So yeah, I'll just go over some of the common punctuation rules. So one of so these are the four common punctuations that are used in the ACT. First one is the comma, and you can use it for either insertion, connecting two independent clauses with a conjunction, or separating elements in a list. Then you have the hyphen, which is either for inserting like more information or explaining something, like an M dash kind of. And then you have a colon. So a colon is like for a list or for an explanation. So you have an independent clause and then another word, phrase, or another independent clause. And then lastly, you have the semicolon. So the semicolon connects two independent clauses without a conjunction, and you separate elements in a complex list. So complex list is basically where you have like multiple lists inside a list. So you're using commas for like the inner list, and then you're using semicolons for the outer ones. So let's do some practice using what we've learned. So yeah, take like 10 or 15 seconds to try and answer this question. Okay, so I'll go over this question now. So yeah, use the tip when choosing between like out of the four that we covered, commas, hyphens, semicolons, and colons, to add extra information onto a sentence, you want to look for pairs. So in this case, I can still picture the two beaming faces across the table, Grandpa with his knowing grin, and Grandma with her plump cheeks dimpling. So the extra information here is Grandpa with his knowing grin and Grandma with her plump cheeks dimpling, um, as she smiled. So look at the first thing. The first thing's a dash or a hyphen. So you also want to pair it with another dash or hyphen. So the answer would be C. Let's try another question. Same tip. So try and use that again. And we're only doing question 16 here, not 17. Okay, so for this, it's a very similar question to before. The only thing is that instead of a hyphen, we're using a comma for insertion here. So yeah, here we see that a comma is ending the inserted information. So we also know that you have to start the inserted information with a comma. So it's just kind of like the opposite of the previous question where they gave you the first insertion point, but now they're giving you the ending insertion point. So yeah, the answer is that you won't change whatever's here because it's the comma. Okay, and now the last example. Okay, so for the last example, for question 49, you want to look at like basically what is the best choice for this underlined section. So in this case, we can see that the list starts after R, meaning that we can eliminate B and D because like both of those don't signify a starting of a list and they just interrupt the flow of the sentence. So between A and C, C is more natural as easily maneuverable is a description of the first element of the list. So like there's no need for a colon in this case because also it's not a long list, it's just a list of two, and it's more natural to say the two principal types of kayaks are the easily maneuverable whitewater kayak and the largest sea kayak, rather than the two principal types of kayaks are the easily maneuverable whitewater kayak and the largest sea kayak. Because also this isn't a list. If you look at question 50 here, I think they're trying to say um, that this is the largest sea kayak, so this isn't a list in this case. So yeah, anyways, between A and C, C is most likely to be the right answer here. So yeah, thank you for watching the video, and yeah, visit vikinginitiative.com and check out the AP, IB, ACT, SAT resources there. And if you have any questions, join the ACT group chat. Again, you can join it through our website, vikinginitiative.com. Thank you.